Ready to begin, folks? Why, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Whitfield Analysis. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, broadcasting live from Next Gen Conservative Studios via Spreaker and via Junior Factor Nation. Thank you so much for joining me for today's program. I am looking forward. We're going to have a great program today, folks. We've got so much to cover. And what we're going to be talking about today is mainly, we'll be starting off the show talking about the DOMA ruling. And obviously that was a big victory for the homosexual community, getting certain aspects of the DOMA law struck down in the Supreme Court. Sorry, folks. The reason why I may seem a little distracted is I'm actually looking for a Facebook comment right now that I want to read. For you. And Zach Angel is having trouble finding our play button. So let me I'm sending him the link again, and hopefully that will help. And Zach says that he can't find the play button. And this is a big. Okay, that Zach hears me now. We're good. So anyway, folks, as I said before, the with SCOTUS striking down the DOMA Act, the Defense of Marriage Act, the homosexual community was celebrating on Friday, and it had a lot of conservatives up in arms. A lot of Christian conservatives are worried about what's going to happen now. And we have lots of topics to cover. In fact, I got some liberal hate mail over an article I posted over at Calgary Nation. So I'm going actually to be reading the hate mail I received. That's the first topic we're going to cover in today's program. So without further ado, let's begin our homosexuality special here on the Whitfield Analysis. Thank you to my good buddy Jimmy Z, who did the audio for that. That's that's Jimmy Z who does the audio. That's actually, I stole that from his show. It actually, I might as well make an announcement right now. Jimmy Z sent me the MP3 files of like that song and then three others because I'm in the process of creating Jimmy Z ringtones that you'll be able to download to your iPhone. So I've actually got the ringtones uh, made in GarageBand using those audio sound bites. I just have to uh, figure out how to like get them distributed or whatever. Um, so if any of you are interested in getting the ringtones for your iPhone, let me know. Anyway, so to begin our homosexuality special, because it is a homo world out there now, folks. It is indeed a homo world. Okay, folks. Now I played that again because I was trying to find a comment that someone left on the Calgary Nation Facebook page for me. So, folks, um, earlier this week, I published an article to CalgaryNation.com where I'm a columnist, and that's Caden Calgar's website, and I'm a columnist there. By the way, the website layout, folks, I'm just loving it now, because uh, I can go in and upload the columns myself. I don't have to wait for Caden to upload them, and it's nice because we're using the WordPress software now. Anyway, so I published an article on Calgary Nation about homosexuality and about the, the Supreme Court striking DOMA down. And long story short, my article, folks, was not so much about DOMA, but it was more about uh, tolerance. And folks, this is a topic I've actually been wanting to address for a while now. But folks, for a while, I've noticed that there's kind of been this whole talk from homosexuals about how oppressive and about how intolerant the right wing Christian uh, groups are, and how because Christians are against homosexuality morally, they think that we're evil, hateful bigots. And my article um, smoke my article was mainly about how tolerance works both ways. Um, as I said a couple seconds ago, folks, there seems to be this trend now of homosexuals believing that if you're morally opposed to homosexuality, that automatically makes you a hateful bigot. And folks, that is not true. I myself have many homosexual, well, I wouldn't say many, but I have a few homosexual friends, and I know of many homosexuals who, although I might not agree with their sexual preference, I still appreciate them for um I still appreciate them for who they are outside of their sexual orientation. Um, Many of them are wonderful people, and so that right, they're like, I'll give you a perfect example. Eric Farahose, one of our regular listeners. In fact, Michael, have you seen Eric around today? I'm surprised he's not here. He usually comes into the chat room right around the same time you do. Oh, hello, Andrew. Well, yeah, you're right. They didn't, they didn't completely strike Doma down, but that's what they're wanting to do. Anyway, as I was saying, I received, some hate mail, and my column was about tolerance and how, well, I'm, st- I'm stumbling upon my words, so let me just start over. Earlier this week on Calgary Nation, I published an article about how homosexuals, folks, I've heard from a lot of homosexuals, they keep making this claim that now that DOMA is struck down, that tolerance is going to just flow and everyone is going to become tolerant and everyone is going to, hold hands and join in and everyone is going to become happy. So I wrote this column on Calgary Nation. Um, and it basically talked um, about how yes, um, I do think tolerance is something that we should all benefit from. I am very tolerant of I am very tolerant of the homosexual lifestyle. I don't agree with it. I don't really support it morally, but I am tolerant of homosexuals and homosexuality, despite what the American left makes conservatives out to be. I am very tolerant of homosexuals. And so this individual wrote me some hate mail, and I'm actually sorry if I seem a little distracted. One of the reasons is I actually had to go find it on Facebook and copy and paste it. Um, and now I'm going to bring it up on my iPad, and it's so I can read this thing without cluttering my computer screens. But basically, my article was about how tolerance works both ways, and just as there are intolerant white heterosexual people, the point of my article was that there are also extremely intolerant gay people. And I brought up two examples of this. One incident I talked about, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the program, is, do y'all remember when Chick-fil-A Appreciation Day happened and the liberals were accusing Dan Cathy, the Chick-fil-A CEO, of being a homophobe? Do any of y'all remember that? Well, it turns out that all the guy said was that Chick-fil-A supports traditional family values, and that's a major threat to the homosexual community. And I use that as a major point for my article, in the sense that, Dan Cathy has never said anything necessarily homophobic. He's never made any threats against homosexuals, and yet he was called a homophobe just because he has Christian moral values. So I brought that up in my article. Now here's the interesting thing. So this guy who sent me a hate mail, blasting me for my article. Hang on, I'm pulling up what he said on my iPad. Oh. Okay, well this is strange. It's not necessarily popping up on my iPad, but anyway, I have it up here on my computer. So anyway, this homosexual replied to my article on the Cowgirl Nation Facebook page, and this is what he said. And this is a long-winded letter. So here's what he said: You don't do you don't do a lot of good for your argument when you blast all homosexuals as intolerant because you got one person calling you a homophobe on Facebook, and you neglect to mention if said person is even gay themselves. In fact, to be so willing to disparage all gays because you got one angry message from someone you don't even know is gay does sound like the kind of thing a homophobe would do. Alright, so first of all, that guy is way off base on a couple issues. So, the incidents where what he's talking about, and where he's accusing that only one guy called me a homophobe on Facebook, what he's talking about there is on the day when DOMA got partially struck down by the Supreme Court, I had multiple homosexuals, obvious homosexuals, posting to my to the wall of both Junior Factor Nation and to the wall of Sam Whitfield the Analyzer, which is my show page. I had multiple obvious homosexuals posting to both walls, and they were posting stuff like, "Oh well, how does it feel? How does it feel to to know that you're on the wrong side of history, you freaking homophobes. I mean, and they were saying this to Jason, they were saying this to me. I'm sure Caden got a lot of it. So, first of all, for this guy to say that it was only one guy on Facebook calling me a homophobe is completely ridiculous because, first of all, this guy, even if it was just one guy that I brought as an example, folks, it's not the only incident. We here at JFN and at Calgary Nation are called homophobes and bigots multiple times per day. So even if it was just one guy in that comment, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter for anything because we get called bigots and homophobes multiple times, and that was the point I was making with that guy's example. So that's his first part of the hate mail. So then he continues on after accusing me of just singling out one person on Facebook, which I did not do. Next thing he says is, secondly, as much material as I read from homosexual authors and journalists and pundits, I've really almost never heard any of them make the argument that you claim they do. That all the intolerance against homosexuals would just go away once DOMA is repealed. In fact, I hear quite often just the opposite. That the repeal of DOMA is only a single step on the road to equality for homosexuals, as it is just one of many anti-gay policies in effect out there. I would respectfully ask that you provide links and or quotes to back up your claim, because to be honest, it sounds as though either you're reading too much into someone's comments, reading them incorrectly, or just making stuff up. Okay, let me be clear on this. I cannot make this crap up. And what he's referring to is, I began my article, and this is true, by the way. I've heard many homosexuals, folks, claim that by striking down DOMA, that the quote-unquote intolerance against homosexuals would decrease dramatically and go away. And I've heard that from homosexual bloggers, and I've heard that from mostly from the homosexual critics on YouTube. And yet this guy is saying that I don't have any proof of that. He's asking me for quotes on general statements. And again, what I said, folks, is I'm not saying that they said that all hatred against homosexuals will end because DOMA was struck down. Alright, I never said that they said that. But a lot of homosexuals were saying that this is the beginning of the end of hatred against homosexuals. Alright. Alright, now here's the third part of this argument that I absolutely hate and dislike. Third, and this is where he really goes after us. Third, DOMA is undoubtedly discriminatory. So you don't have to put that in quotes as if there's still a question about whether it discriminates or not. It was, in fact, the definition of discriminatory law. If you're unfamiliar with it, read up on the history of how and why it was enacted, including the House Judiciary Committee at the time standing of the bill's passing was to reflect and honor a collective moral judgment and to express moral disapproval of homosexuality. Well, yeah, I did know that. Part of the reason why, and again, this is another thing that drives me crazy about the homosexual community. It's their total disregard for other people's moral beliefs. Okay, let me frame this in another way. This is going to be an extreme, but nevertheless, I have to take it to this extreme. There are certain religious groups, or they're more like religious cults, but still, they're groups of people who believe that murder is okay for sacrificial ceremonies and whatnot. Yet, collectively, our society does not approve of murder or of sacrificial ceremonies. The same is true with homosexuality, folks. The same is true of homosexuality, folks. The vast majority of Americans, even though we are tolerant of homosexuals, still disapprove morally of it. And that's all Dylan was trying to say. Alright, so now here's his follow-up. If Congress passed a law and stated their purpose of the law was to express more disapproval of African Americans or Hispanics or Jews or any other minority group, would you be questioning whether that law was discriminatory? Oh my god, folks, this is the other thing. Homosexuals love to lump themselves into the same class as African Americans and Hispanics. And as I've always said, show me one instance in history where a homosexual was turned away because there was a big fat sign on a door that said no homosexuals. Show me a time when Americans forced homosexuals to sit in the back of a bus. That's discrimination. That's bigotry. The homosexual movement in the 1960s civil rights movement cannot be lumped into the same category, folks. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. Alright. Alright. Okay. Now, here's where he really goes after me. Fourth, this be tolerant of my intolerance argument is old, stale, logically faulty, and doesn't win you any points with the public. No, a gay person is not morally or ethically required to be tolerant of a view that she says is sinful, an abomination, sickening, dangerous to children and society as a whole, just by virtue of being gay. That homosexuality is on par to adultery, robbery, incest, and pedophilia. If you just don't get how unbelievably abhorrent those views about homosexuality are, and think that the views of those people who hold them should be treated with dignity and respect, then it says more about you than it does about us. No one says of the neo-Nazis that we should be tolerant and respectful of their white supremacy views. Why? Because they're disgusting, horrible views that do real harm to people. Why are the views on gays, which are among some of the tamer ones, that prominent conservative politicians and commentators have expressed, any less disturbing and any more acceptable? So, folks, they're comparing Christian conservatives to neo-Nazis now. That's what this guy is doing. And I am going to give his name. Well, I don't have his name in front of me on Facebook, but folks, I just responded to this critic's note to me on Facebook, and all I can say was he took my article way out of context and twisted what I said. Look, and I advise you all to go to cowgirlnation.com and check out my article. The title of my article, if you go to Cowgirl Nation, is "The End of DOMA, Tolerance is a Two-Way Street." That's the title of my article. I advise you to read that article. And this guy is implying that I made homophobic remarks. In fact, all I was saying in my article, folks, was that intolerance works both ways. I did not even so much bring up the issue of homosexuality as I did the intolerance that goes both ways. That's all I was talking about, folks. And I don't understand how some of you just don't get that. Anyway, folks, I'm going to take a real quick break, and we'll play a commercial, and it's going to be a longer show than usual because we have a lot to cover still. A lot to cover. So anyway, folks, we'll be right back. You're listening to the Whitfield analysis on Junior Factor Nation, and stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages. There's nothing that a little Eddie Van Halen won't fix. Anyway, folks, welcome back to the program. Sam Whitfield here, broadcasting live from Next Gen Conservative Studios. Folks, I'm sorry that first segment was disorganized and so choppy. Usually the segments usually are more organized, and I apologize deeply for such a choppy segment. You know, it must be one of those weeks, folks. It must be one of those weeks because Jason Veely on Thursday evening after his show texted me and said that he had an awful show, that he was disorganized, and he didn't really feel on top of his game. And so it just must be one of those weeks, folks. But the second segment, I promise you, will be a lot more organized and a lot more coherent. I know that's what you guys tune in for, is coherency and accuracy. So anyway, let's go ahead and continue our homosexual fest. Yay! Again, all credit goes to my good friend Jimmy Z of the Jimmy Z Show. Alright, now folks, I want to read you an article that I've read before on the program. I haven't read it. I haven't read this during my tenure at Junior Factor Nation, but I read this when I had my show over on Podomatic.com, which was actually the last time I covered homosexual issues. So it's been a while. But this article I'm about ready to read is a manifesto from a gay revolutionary. And folks, the reason I bring this article up is, you know, homosexuals talk about um, how how fundamentalist Christians are evil, and how they want to destroy homosexuals and all that stuff. Which there may be Christian radicals who want to kill homosexuals in the name of Christianity. I do not condone their actions. I know that there are radically anti-gay folks out there. I am not denying that. However, this is the point that I was trying to get in my article. However, there are radicals on both sides of the fence, and the homosexuals cannot act like they are the completely innocent victims here. Now, what I'm about to read to you is a 1987 manifesto from an individual named Michael Swift, who is a quote-unquote gay revolutionary. And this manifesto was published in a magazine called Gay Community News, and it appeared in the February issue of 1987. So this is probably about 27 years old now, but still, it's a great illustration, at least in my opinion, of how there may be radicals against homosexuality, but there are also radical homosexuals who want to kill all heterosexual people. And you'll understand what I mean. Michael Swift is one of those people. Alright, so here's Michael Swift's essay. And he begins by saying this. This essay is an outre. Madness. A tragic, cruel fantasy. An eruption of inner rage on how the oppressed desperately dream of being the oppressor. So, in other words, translating that to heterosexual language, and getting rid of all the fancy words, what he's basically saying is this is just his fantasy. He's not really going to do this, but this is his fantasy. And that's the excuse that the homosexuals always use with this manifesto of Michael Swift's. That, oh, he wasn't really going to do all this. This is just his fantasy. But I would hold off on writing this off as just a pure fantasy until you hear me read this and what he has to say. I mean, this is a very creepy manifesto. This actually reminds me of some of Hitler's early writings and what he wanted to do. So this is what he's going to do, and this is Michael Swift's fantasy of a new world order that he'd like to see. And it gets pretty graphic right away, so be cautioned. So this is the beginning of the manifesto, folks. We shall sodomize your sons, emblems of your feeble masculinity, of your shallow dreams and vulgar lies. We shall seduce them in your schools, in your dormitories, in your gymnasiums, in your locker rooms, in your sports arenas, in your seminaries, in your youth groups, in your movie theater bathrooms, in your army bunkhouses, in your truck stops, in your all-male clubs, in your houses of Congress, wherever men are with men together. Your sons shall become our minions and do our bidding. They will be recast in our image. They will come to crave and adore us. Well, it already sounds like the homosexuals are doing that. I mean, they're already infiltrating our schools. We're already seeing them, teaching in schools that homosexuality is cool, that there's nothing wrong with it, that homosexuality is the same as heterosexuality. We're seeing all of this start to come to a fruition. So this may have just been a manifesto 25 years ago. But this is all starting to come to fruition. And I have a feeling that the homosexuals are going to continue to try forcing this manifesto on us as time goes by, folks. Continuing on. Second paragraph. Women, you cry for freedom. You say that you are no longer satisfied with men. They make you unhappy. We, connoisseurs of the masculine face, the masculine physique, shall take your men from you then. We will amuse them. We will instruct them. We will embrace them when they weep. Women, you say you wish to live with each other instead of with men. Then go and be with each other. We shall give your men pleasures they have never known, because we are foremost men too, and only one man knows how to truly please another man. Only one man can understand the depth and feeling, the mind and body of another man. So, in other words, Michael Swift, this radical homosexual, is telling women that, yeah, lesbianism, being a lesbian, why don't you go and be lesbians? This is much better than, it's much better for you, because you can go and be with your fellow women, and we'll take your men from you and give them sexual pleasures that they don't even know exist yet. Alright. Alright. Now, this gets creepy. All laws banning homosexual activity will be revoked. Instead, legislation shall be passed which engenders love between men. Well, we're already starting to see the Supreme Court and other lawmakers strike down laws protecting heterosexual marriage. I wonder how soon it will be before they pass legislation which engenders homosexual relationships. Next paragraph. All homosexuals must stand together as brothers. We must be united aristocratically, philosophically, socially, politically, and financially. We will triumph only when we present a common face to the vicious heterosexual enemy. Next paragraph. If you dare to cry faggot, fairy, queer at us, we will stab you in your cowardly hearts and defile your dead, puny bodies. In other words, to quote Aaron Carroll, Caden Cowger, go kill yourself. I mean, that's what Aaron Carroll was saying right there. That's, that pretty much describes his actions. Next paragraph. We shall write poems of love between men. We shall stage plays in which men openly caress, in which man openly caresses man. We shall make films about the love between heroic men, which will replace the cheap, superficial, sentimental, insipid, juvenile, heterosexual infatuations presently dominating your cinema screens. And folks, you'll get no argument from me that some of the heterosexual films out there, mostly the heterosexual porn, is disgusting. But basically, these guys want to replace heterosexual pornography with gay pornography. Anyway, we shall sculpt statues of beautiful young men, of bold athletes, which will be placed in your parks, your squares, your plazas. The museums of the world will be filled only with paintings of graceful naked lads. So, alright. Our writers and artists will make love between men fashionable and de rigueur. Sorry, French word, I don't know what it means. And we will succeed because we are adept at setting styles. We will eliminate heterosexual liaisons through usage of the devices of wit and ridicule vices which we are skilled in employing. Next paragraph. We will, we will unmask the powerful homosexuals who masquerade as heterosexuals. You will be shocked and frightened when you find that your presidents and their sons, your industrialists, your senators, your mayors, your generals, your athletes, your film stars, your television personalities, your civic leaders, your priests are not the safe, familiar, bourgeois, heterosexual figures you assume them to be. We are everywhere. We have infiltrated your ranks. Be careful when you speak of homosexuals, because we are always among you. We may be sitting across the desk from you. We may even be sleeping in the same bed with you. There will be no compromises. We are not middle class weaklings. Highly intelligent, we are the natural aristocrats of the human race. And still minded aristocrats never settle for anything less. Those who oppose us will be exiled. We shall raise vast private armies, as Mishma did, to defeat you. We shall conquer the world, because warriors, inspired and banded together by homosexual love and honor, are invincible as were the ancient Greek soldiers. Next paragraph. The family unit spawning ground of lies, betrayals, mediocrity, hypocrisy, and violence would be abolished. The family unit, which only dampens imagination and curbs free will, must be eliminated. Perfect boys will be conceived and grown in the genetic laboratory. They will be bound together in communal settings, under the control and instruction of homosexual savants. All churches who condemn us will be closed. Our only gods are handsome young men. We adhere to a cult of beauty, moral, and aesthetic. All that is ugly and vulgar and banal will be annihilated. Since we are alienated from middle-class heterosexual conventions, we are free to live our lives according to the dictates of the pure imaginations. For us, too much is not enough. The exquisite society to emerge will be governed by an elite comprised of gay poets. One of the major requirements for a position of power in the new society of homoeroticism will be indulgence in the Greek passion. Any man contaminated with heterosexual lust will be automatically barred from a position of influence. All males who insist on remaining stupidly heterosexual will be tried in homosexual courts of justice and will become invisible men. We shall rewrite history. History filled and debased with your heterosexual lies and disorientations and distortions. Excuse me. We shall portray the homosexuality of the great leaders and thinkers who have shaped the world. We will demonstrate the homosexuality. We will demonstrate that homosexuality and intelligence and imagination are inextricably linked, and that homosexuality is a requirement for the true nobility, true beauty in a man. We shall be victorious because we are fueled with the ferocious bitterness of the oppressed who have been forced to play seemingly bit parts in your dumb heterosexual shows throughout the ages. We too are capable of firing guns and manning the barricades of the ultimate revolution. Tremble, swine, when we appear before you without our masks. So that's his manifesto, folks. Very, very disturbing. Very disturbing indeed. And, Andrew, I'm going to send you a copy of this, a guy's manifesto, because this fits right into your Melchizedek story, I think. I mean, folks, there is no denying that there are homosexual radicals as well. There just isn't. And pretty soon, if this guy gets his way, we truly will be living in a homo world. We truly will be. Alright, well, yeah, Michael Swift is a radical. Now, folks, we're going to take another commercial break, and when we get back, I'm going to talk about how there are more homosexual radicals out there than you may think. So, stay tuned, we'll be right back with the Whitfield analysis. Stay tuned. and it's becoming a homo world pretty rapidly, folks. Oh, now, folks, one thing. This segment is going to be relatively short. I'm going to go to a quick commercial break, and then when I come back, we will end the show. But, folks, the point I was making by reading the article about Michael Swift is the fact that there's discrimination on both sides. There's intolerance on both sides. The homosexual community cannot make the claim that they are the only ones who are discriminated against, and who are the victim of intolerance. Because I got news for you, gang. The same people who are marching on Capitol Hill and who were at the Capitol supporting DOMA are the same people who are radicals like Michael Swift. I hate to say it, but all of the homosexuals who are wanting DOMA to get struck down so badly are the same ones who are writing stuff like Michael Swift. That's just the clear-cut truth about it. Folks, I'm going to come back, and then when we do come back, I'll give my final thoughts. I'll discuss what we're going to talk about tomorrow, and then we'll wrap up the show. So stay tuned. We'll be right back for closing remarks. All right, guys, we're here. We're back at the Whitfield analysis, and uh, we are going to wrap up our show now. Andrew commented, Caden posted on Facebook more videos of people bashing him. Yes, I know, Andrew. That's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. More and more. Really, folks, the homosexuality issue is really not one that I like to talk about. Um, Not because I'm for homosexuality or any of my opinions on it. It's mainly based on the fact that I feel that there are a lot more important issues to talk about. And oh my god, my iPhone is ringing here, folks, and um, there, just shut off. But anyway, folks, we'll be talking more about how liberal intolerance is going on, and about how they're attacking Caden Calger. We're going to be going over that tomorrow, and we'll also be focusing a little more on some fun topics like I'll be doing a summer movie review and whatnot. So anyway, stay tuned uh, for that tomorrow. And in the meantime, I want to thank you all for listening to the program and putting up with my silliness for the last hour or so. I really appreciate it. Folks, from all of us at Junior Factor Nation, have a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you tomorrow evening. God bless, and God save this nation.